Okay, so I'd like to kind of, yes, to that list. Okay, I'd like to go ahead and kind of get us started, kick us off a little bit. Um, that's okay. I just kind of want to open up and talk a little bit about Furious Flower, what they do, right? And I'll tell you a little bit about me, and then we'll kind of get into the reading. The reading, no more than like 25, 30 minutes. I've got a couple of poems from the book coming out, but mostly kind of new stuff, new project work that I want to share, the work that actually won the prize for sure. I want to share that, right? And then we'll kind of move into a kind of little Q&A. Yeah, talk a little bit. I'm loving these songs. I'm loving this list already. Okay, so thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for watching the Furious Flower Facebook Live reading series. I'm so happy to kick it off for the fall. For those of you who don't know, the Furious Flower Poetry Center at James Madison University is the nation's oldest academic center dedicated to Black poetry, right? That's big. In the 25 years since the first Furious Flower Conference, in the 15 years of the center's brick and mortar existence, Furious Flower programs have reached thousands of poets, educators, students, and poetry lovers around the world. From groundbreaking media and anthologies to summer seminars for educators and decade-defining conferences, Furious Flower has impacted literary communities on local, regional, national, and international levels by creating platforms for Black poets to encounter their readers, and for readers to experience and engage with Black literary culture in new and exciting ways. This Facebook Live reading series is made possible by a grant from the National Endowment for the Arts. So thank you to the NEA. What? Yeah? Okay. A little bit about who I am. And actually, I want to kind of bring some of the music back for this a little bit, if that's cool. Just the instrumental version. Okay, so my name's Diamond Forde. I am a PhD candidate at Florida State University. I have a debut book coming out in March of 2021 called Mother Body, and I will talk very briefly a little bit about that. Let's see, what else do you need to know about me? I have won a few awards. I'm super blessed. CLA's Margaret Walker Prize. I was a third place winner for Frontier Poetry's new Poet Award. But also, and most importantly, the reason why I'm here is that I won the Furious Flower Poetry Prize, which was insane. I freaked out, jumped around my house a little bit. Welcome to my house. It's very bland. For those of you who are interested in submitting to the Furious Flower Poetry Prize, I just want you to know that the prize will be open again this year from December until February. And actually, this year's judge is Erica Hine. So you really, really want to send that work in. For my year, the judge was Kay Miller, and I really want to take a second to stop and thank Kay for reading and really kind of closely considering my work. I really love and appreciate that. Super grateful. Okay. So, if we're ready for it, if we're into it, if we want some, I got some poems for us. Do we want poems? I hope we want poems. I'm just going to graduate. Okay. The mother body is more than womb work. It is a garden bed of zinnia, a switchblade with the blade tilt in. Sometimes I move and my hips hammer stillness. I birthed a little home for myself, trimmed it with lace curtains, baubles, and bookshelves, hung the autumn scent of apples from the eaves. I could live in that house. I could die there. Ode to Magic. When it comes to sex, don't test my skills, 'cause my head game have you head over hills. Give a nigga the chills, have him pay my bills. Lil' Kim, Magic Stick. Praise for the anthem that raised me from a makeshift mattress lumped together by throw pillows. Basement hookup anthem. Anthem of block parties posted up in a black and mild hold. Anthem to remind me there's value to my hips in motion. My ass in motion buoys on the mist in any dewy eye. And that summer, Mama handed me hand-me-down Jordache jeans, and I wore them to sit my denim ass in the bowl of the neighbor boy's crotch. What did I own then but the silver hook of desire reeling me in? Teens gathered on the transformers till dark, despite the heat, despite nothing between us but the angling need to be seen as someone, not cramped six to a one-room apartment. Mama sleeping each night beside a man she didn't love. That summer, the neighbor boy plucked irises from the sign outside our complex for a chance to rest his hand on the copper pennies of my brown, growing breast. I learned then all the trinkets a body can conjure. Private jets, Tiffany silverware sets, a palette, and a place to call home. Blood ode. Fat girl nicks herself shaving in the shower, resents the water that will carry her blood to sea. Blood, worthless currency, cannot buy a country, but becomes it. Platelets stitching into streets. Fat girl weeps for the blood that won't return. How many mothers have tried such a homecoming? Sons and daughters inking the tarry streets. Fat girl becomes a mother through her looking, has seen too many children mangled by a sense of justice. She carries somebody's child in the crater that deaths create inside her. If she could just reach deep enough, if she could piecemeal her own plump, how many layers would it take to make a bulletproof lung? Fat girl mourns the blood muling a persistent path through the drain pipes. If blood must be taken, let there be coral glittering like gemstones at their feet. Dolphins pitching foam in arcs out from the sea. Let there be air enough. Fat girl could be a mother, fretting the impossible journey of her blood. Census sonnet. In my bedroom, we guarded a room for wasps between the window and screen. Obscene red, wasp whipping a papery aria for weeks till my partner returned well armed with a can of Raid, placed between glass and the bated breath of spring, then shouted for me to count them. So I did. As he sprayed, I counted the quick tick reflex leaving their wings. 15 wasps made cemetery on the sill, their bodies curling like rose petals. And when he finished, I counted still, a strangeness swarmy in my chest. For the first time, I numbered my dead. So how we doing? How we feeling? Already been through 3 poems, kicking us off. I'm going to switch gears in a moment. I'm going to catch some water. Some of those were poems from Mother Body that's kind of, again, coming out in March 2021 with Saturnalia Books. Super honored and in awe still, and shaking still, that Patricia Smith and enjoyed that book enough to kind of see merit in it and say, this is the one that you should publish. Like, oh my God, right? I have poems that I'm working on now as a PhD student at Florida State, doctoral candidate, where I am writing my maternal lineage, and as I kind of go, that lineage gets bigger, as it should, right? As it always does. But I'm rewriting that through the lens of the King James Bible, right? One of the most important books to my grandmother, who the series really focuses on. The project right now is called The Book of Alice. And it was actually these poems that Kay Miller chose for the Furious Flower Prize, which was like insane and sort of reassuring, right, that the work I'm doing is on the right path. Right? So what I want to do is I want to share some of the poems from that project. Yeah. So to kick it off, first thing you need to know, as I'm thinking about my origins, my grandmother. As a young woman, my grandmother used to work in cotton fields, and she hated it. Hated it. She used to have like this really long hair, and it would get in the way all the time. She used to have to kind of wrap it up around her arm just to kind of work. She hated it. She promised herself that the first man to ask her to marry, she would do it, just so that she wouldn't have to work in the fields anymore. And that man was my Grandpa Harry. But before she could marry my Grandpa Harry, she had to prove that she could be a good wife. She had to prove to his family that she could be a good wife. And so apparently the best way to do that is to make some biscuits. Okay. And obviously these biscuits were a bomb as fuck, because here I am. Okay. But it's interesting to think about origins in this way, right? This kind of epic, that literal epic, right? This journey, right? That sort of leads to my existence here, right? And the work that I've been doing lately, exploring the biscuit breadth of my maternal lineage, right? And so I kind of want to kick us off, and I want to bring you in there with me. Okay. The first book of Alice, called Genesis, Genesis 1:1, creation myth. In the beginning, Alice dusted her counters with flour, white enough to cotton the fields dotting Carolina's arches. Beyond her, sky treaded blue like the croon of a well-tuned guitar, its melody of breakfast. Biscuits buttressing their trumpet heads into the heat. Each morning, biscuits, then a cotton field proofing like dough. Alice, with her grace fanning like the unbroken wings of a sandhill crane, dodged the nipping stalks, unfixed the bowls with a twist unbent, her dark hair lagooning her shoulders until, fed up, she wrapped the flooding coils into a basket around her arm. In the beginning, Alice and her basket of curls culled the ghostly fields, dragged behind them the sun like a wet cloth until the rose dampened with light. At night, Alice simmered in the tub in her yard, held in the tin bath's foundry, the hooks gutting her spine, sank further in the suds until the dark scribbles behind her eyelids ghosted white, and the square heads of her toes pruned white, and her voice churned into foam. The first man to ask me to marry him, I will. A mantra hymning a spell, charming the sugar in her cracked wheat, the rubber healing her boots, or the dust sifting hillsides on the sill. The first man, the first man, the first man I will, she said, until her tongue wept magic, and the first man bloomed, watered from the spittle of her wish. In the beginning, Alice loved the man. His long stride a lyric, his jaw unhitched for song. He was the copper latch on a new set of luggage, a chrome grill mirroring the sun. She would marry him, would carry his arias until they burst from her placental dreams with the force of a purpled, bleeding god. But first, she had to prove she could love him. and so reached into the icebox for the tub of lard, its animal musk glistening her arms. Then Alice laid the familiar landscape of flour, the powder mountaining the countertop. She poured buttermilk so cold, the pads of her hands blossomed like bougainvillea. Unused, the mixing bowl blinked on the counter like a hungry eye. The secret to making biscuits was that making biscuits was nothing like loving a man. Touching the dough too much was a risk, meant working the golden breads into discs, chewy or hard like biting into a cotton-worn fist. Alice chunked the lard, rolled the dough until just sticky. It nursed the brown nipple of her knuckle, then squished, the soft dough warming like a newlywed kiss. The second book of Alice, called Exodus, Exodus 2:1, the firstborn. And the Lord said unto the womb of Alice, sing. And the uterus bellowed its trumpets, and the tubes rattled their maracas, and the eggs clattered their ovarian gourds. Sometimes the first man would hymn his lips on Alice, would play a melody she couldn't sing alone. And it was then she saw him the way other women saw him, like a finger fluttering her vows. Sometimes the first man would wander. So Alice went to bed with the sheets heaped into the shape of him, ignoring the bedside candle oscillating its anemone-scented eye. Alice longed to tip that candle, to let its fire soak its glossy slip around her. Heat, Alice thought, is the birthplace of living. But Alice could hardly remember the hills that raised her, could hardly remember anything that wasn't the smell of him, smoke and nickels, someone's perfume pedaling like a kiss on his chin. Another night the first man wandered, and it was then that Alice could hear the trains screech, their metal nocturnes outside her window, the dogs unhinge a mechanical howl, a stranger's voice siphoning the drain pipes. Then Alice said unto the Lord, lo, that I should love a man in parts, that I should want a man for his fingers when I cannot have his heart. And the Lord said unto Alice, take what you want. So Alice jammed her hand into the pitch between her legs, pulled out the song God nested there, the melody of a daughter, black with blood, her throat wet and red as a melon. Alice pressed the song to her chest, fed her the honeyed milk of her breast, and the child's cheeks billowed like linen on a line. Alice stained warm by the lapping tongue and the dewy eye of the streetlights. Alice and the song child slept to the schnick-schnick of a hunger quenched. Exodus 4:1, calling the hogs. Kind of a little bit of context, just so you know, my family, when we talk about calling the hogs, we're talking about somebody who snores hella loud. Okay, cool. If he's snoring, we tell him he's calling the hogs. Cool. Okay, calling the hogs. He ain't coming back tonight. Next night, neither. You hear your marrow cresting its cricks and miss what you never thought you'd miss. Your man, snoring through midnight, uvula clocking its knocker on his throat's narrow door. The hogs, housed in his hot house mouth, whose truffle they rootin' now. You collage women in your sleep, knees nylon sleeved, wrists angled to hips, ears clamped round his late night sounds. Those women a fly trap and you the fly. You head outside in a bathrobe, blue and moth-mangled, find a patch of grass green enough to dream it be a field, then lie down. Nipple the fang-toothed moon, unseed the pearl buttons fastening your ribs till bones axe dark, your chest basins its trough. Unctuous butter of your esophagus flushed and fattening, your lungs sear like a fillet in the heat. Buffet of pinks, your heart dins its dinner bell, and you don't care if he pot bellies home to eat. You just want a whiff to wander in him. He should know he's missed a feast. Let's take a little break real quick. A little breath break. I'm gonna get some water. I'm gonna play a little Otis. Let's play a little Otis real quick. Jumping in. I have reasons, promise. How we feeling? How we doing? Hope we're holding on. Hope we're enjoying things. Water break. Thank y'all. Okay. I needed that break. Okay. Let's continue. Glad you're digging the Alice poem so far. The next poem in the series is also one of the poems that won the prize. My mother and I were kind of talking about a lot of the rules that she sort of grew up with, right? And the kind of superstitions that kind of circle the periphery of our lives, and how much of that is so deeply steeped in survival, right? Like, these are the things that you kind of desperately pass on to your children in the hopes that they survive, right? In which case, these are the laws that shaped my mother's house. The third book of Alice called Laws. Laws 1:1. How to build the holy tabernacle. Speak unto the daughters of the first man. Say unto them, love a modest hem, and their muslin skirts will flirt with their ankles when they walk through the door of the tabernacle of the Lord. Speak unto the daughters of the first man, say unto them, patience is a head unwashed while they bleed. Then teach them that blood has saved them once, mopped over the doors of the tabernacle of the Lord. Speak unto the daughters of the first man, teach them that fish could sequin through their sea-foam dreams a sign. A woman will boat with the parasitic bloat of man. Speak that they take heed, it isn't them, pregnant, beached, and bilging. When they ask about their father, tell them, men amount to an ant in a trash can filled with coffee grounds. Then take the daughters of the first man to a hospital, hand them pamphlets and Bibles, cadet them through rooms of lepers whose eyes are empty, so empty the daughters will not know who is missing. Still at home behind the door of the tabernacle of the Lord. Speak unto the daughters of the first man, tell them the spirit is a stocking and a slip, the rustle and wraith of nylon on their hips as they flit through the door of the tabernacle of the Lord. Speak unto the daughters of the first man. Say unto them, keep their purses off the floor, it is money out the door of the tabernacle of the Lord. Speak unto the daughters of the first man, tell them, don't Speak when thunder blunders down the roof, their vocal cords wired as lightning spiders through the door of the tabernacle of the Lord. Tell them not to sweep their feet or split a pole, not to buy a man shoes if they want him to come home. Wait, no. Speak unto the daughters of the first man. Tell them if they bring into the house any record that he loved, you will crack Jackie, Etta, and all the women that he loved with your heel. Leave them God-gored, jagged ends snagging the floor near the door of the tabernacle of the Lord. Do not tell them you are shattered and have seen music skin a man from the bones of his home. Speak to the daughters, but do not tell them you are afraid music will carry them too. Do not tell them music is a red hag humming on the lips of the witching hour, that she drinks your living air. But what if they ask where he's gone? Just wait. Do not tell them you are praying for the man that you loved not to come through the door of the tabernacle of the Lord. Laws 3:1. Pig feet and black-eyed peas. Her knife knuckles between the toes splits an onion, phosphorescent sliver of the moon, peas twice soaked in boiling, bay leaf and bell pepper, bouillon, salt, the whole house smelling like down home, grease and garlic, procreant stank on the stove. Alice knows hunger. It's costumes, tight-bellied tweed hunger, orgasms in organza, even the cotton-mouthed hunger of home. Beans blink in the pot. Trotters split their sinew, sigh. Upstairs, her husband's brother duets with Otis. Try a little tenderness, a two-step shuffles down, stirs kids from their beds. She will mother them the way she once was mothered. Psalms still wet in her smile, each kiss a map back. Alice throws the window open, and heat carries the sweet stink of miles to the burrow. Laws 4:2. Collard greens and ham hocks, or what to do when the bills are due. Ingredients: collard greens, 3 pounds, hand fanned like money. Bacon fat pearled in a jar. 1 onion. 3 ham hocks dissected from their rickety knees. 4 cups chicken stock, and enough water to baptize a child. 1 dash Lowry's, and an equal amount of salt. Pinch of store-brand pepper. Enough sugar to hang on the hips like a lover. Vinegar, licking its lightning, your deepest pot. Directions: 1. Ablute the bunches. Free the greens from their bitter spines, twine them round your finger, fret the rugged ends, your daughters' heads, edges leafing their box braids already, dark heads wilding like vines, you twist the hairlets, sulphur-handed, a tired thumb drumming their roots, pray they bloom, but not too soon. 2. Dice the onion, squinting near the sill, citrine, silky, the onion flirts an acrid bustle from its bulbous skirt, its sharp sting, Vidalia lie. See anyone but you in its blade-worn eye. 3. Start a pot no deeper than an empty pocket. Saute the onion, clot of grease leaping in the heat, ham hocks and their jointed knots sizzle drippings. Pray the gas guzzles long enough for the stove to wreathe with heat. 4. Your daughters ask when they'll see you again. Do not tell them you hook each minimum wage minute with the sharp end of their frowns. 5. Combine the collards and hocks, the chicken stock, the vinegar and spice. 6. Twice you dined in the light of home's every candle. The daughters' bowed heads flamed with wildness held vigil for the sweat stringing their necks. 7. Raise the collards to ours. Holler for your daughters pretending the patched toe of their socks strut a stiletto. The borough, Broadways, and midday spotlight. Who doesn't want to smell Italian leather? 8. Whenever the collards iron perfumes pennies in the broth, measure the greens in heaps. Eat off whatever you have too much of. Eat off paper plates. Eat from the divot in the bed where you used to sleep. Eat from the dog's Alpo dusted bowl. Eat from the daughter's school shoes, rubber peeling from the soles. How's it going? I think I have maybe like 2 more poems. I have 2 poems left. That's cool. Then I think we'll kick off a little Q&A. If that's cool, it's cool. I'm really feeling how many folks in the chat really resonate with this down home cooking, Proud. Okay, 2 poems. This next poem is written in response of MFA, PhD program a-holes who tell you to stop writing body poems because Sharon Olds already did it and she did it better. They can kiss my ass. Another damn body poem. The second Alice's Studebaker stuttered from the lot to the night service, where the gospel choir paddled through tidal couplets of piety and prayer. The daughters, back home, nosed a needle over the forbidden record their cousins smuggled in under their shirts. Rhythm and blues. The tunes Alice banned with the first man. If Alice could have seen the house tinseled with Martha and the Vandellas, the Isley brothers filigreed on the rug, Betty Everett diddied about the girls' room, and the cousins circled around the floor-length mirror, their shirts tied, checkered, and paisley button-ups bottoning their midriffs. Then the daughters, too, the whole girl gaggle, flicking their otter bodies to the guitar's pulse, wanting hips, and a boy with hands capped like a minaret against them. This, till a voice creaked from the stairwell, their brother, look out for the pecan-colored putter of Alice's jalopy plunking up the drive. Then the music stopped. The evening quieted back in. Once, while the daughters danced in their room, the youngest daughter crawled away to taste each splintered offering of her homeworld. The mango sweetness of a dining set. Cambric brillo of an ottoman pressed against the gums. Then, beneath the sink, the daughter gulped the roach spread. Its alarming whiteness bubbling at the corners of her mouth until, finally, she was found. Then the daughters, afraid to tell Alice she might have missed the preamble to her youngest daughter's death, stopped the music, untied their shirts, fell to their knees to pray. But the youngest daughter didn't die that day, and by sunrise was well enough to nub the blue end of a plastic schooner toy between her budding teeth. But the daughters were done with mirrors. But I wish I could take them back to the gyre and jive of discovering they are the sunrise blotting Monet's blue wharf, my mama among them. Too young to dance, but old enough to believe love was something never meant for her. Our bodies, temples, shouldn't that mean anyone can worship? Shouldn't that mean it's okay to dip my hips into a communion bowl? I confess I was nearly 20 before I could touch myself the first time, trembling like a weaver bird against the tightly woven nest in my chest. Finally, I understood my below as more than blood home, as more than a hard week on a basement floor, hooded around a portable heater, the blade edge of the street light scything in to find me, praying. The heater's molten glow would ooze through, burn brighter than the white-hot pain of a uterus cauliflowered by tumors. And the first time I tried to die was because of this, because I couldn't sum my body beyond its function, its needled pins, what I would have done for a toe hair ode, a uterine elegy, a ballad of lopsided breasts, any body warble louder than the ache barking inside me. I'm so tired of my body, afraid of what I don't know about it, that if I stop writing, I might become that girl again on the bedroom floor, loathing a muscle clench, my detached blood a hermit crab in molt. I'd love to shed my skin, to emerge new and pink gleaming, reach for the old pearlescent shell of my elbows, for the pebbled knees, for the dimple in my chin, pucker to nurse. And this is my last poem. Thank you guys for being in this wild ride with me. Right? Again, this last poem is actually not from the Book of Alice project. This is from my debut collection, Mother Body. Again, that's coming out in next year, 2021, March. Thank you again for holding through with me. Right, and let's kind of have a little chat through this. This poem's called "Sometimes Fat Girl Takes Showers in the Dark." Earlier this year, the black hole at the center of our galaxy blinked a record brightest, a flash unfurling its warbler wings. Light escaped and pouring through a clenched fist, still not as bright as the bulbs that wheeze above my mirror, orbiting the naked sun, my body torched, sweat marring my underbreast, my nipples, even the shadows squeezed between my thighs. I flip the switch. What does my body love more than tricks of light? My body almost human in the right mood, breasts downturned and bashful, a smile webbed in the fat between each hip, or my body nature heavy, silver rivers stretching down my wrists, tributaries iridescent with fish, my back craggy with black water. I want to praise what hides in the dark, quasars and neutron stars cracking into the universe like fresh eggs. My gut, D-shaped by dark, a stubborn spark in the hunger, birthing my world. Thank y'all. That's the poems I got. Okay. We made it. Okay, I'm gonna take a breath of water and then let's kick off. You guys have questions for me? That would be dope if you do. If not, I can ramble. I play more 90s music. What's the mood? Tell me. Thank you for coming through, Jude. Thank you, Eleanor. Thank you, Mama. So, trying to think how I even came to this whole poetry game. I didn't even, I honestly didn't even think I wanted to be a poet when I first started. Like, I wanted to kind of like write fiction, and that was not the move apparently, because then I started reading poetry, and I was like, holy crap, how do I dedicate my life to this? Um, so I think like some of the big key players for me when I was first starting was like I and Sharon Olds, right? They taught me, oh my God, they liberated the possibilities for me. And that's really where it kind of kicked off for me. See, we got some questions. Who or what am I reading right now? Excellent questions. Okay, so first off, see, I'm actually cheating. I usually have like my stack of books because I keep them really close to me when I'm reading them. But I've moved them like a dummy, so I can't just kind of answer those questions. I have a class thinking about the epic tradition right now. So right at this current moment, I'm rereading Olio, um, because I'm presenting on that on Monday. I'm also in uh, a class about the South, so we're reading Stamped from the Beginning, right? I'm mentioning the books that I'm reading for class first because I want you to know, like, when you're in a PhD program, first and foremost, that takes up most of your energy, right? Also, I may be or may not be prepping for prelims right now. So that is also a big part of my reading. So I'm actually reading for that. The Furious Flower anthology is on my reading list because it has to be. Poetry as a genre is my concentration, but I'm also into African American poetics. I'm trying to look at the history of that. So I'm kind of charting um, that history, thinking about contemporary readers, thinking about maybe like Francis E.W. Harper, right? Thinking about that lineage, Phyllis Wheatley, James Weldon Johnson, um, but also kind of thinking about more modern writers. I always come back to Lucille Clifton. Um, Thinking about Kowanyaka, thinking about Rita Dove, Nikki Finney, Tahima Jess, Tracy K. Smith, Camille Dungy, right? List goes. List goes. That's where my reading energy is right now. How do I write? Ooh, that's a good question. Reluctantly. Okay. So usually what happens is I will ruminate on like a bit of language or a thought or idea for a long time. I will let it consume me for the day, and I will sit with it. I keep little sort of bits and things on my phone that I can kind of return to when I feel stuck, but I will stick with a phrase or something and sit with it. And then when I have to rate, I will sit my butt down in this very chair, turn on some music. I listen to kind of like video game tunes while I'm writing, strangely, because I can't have any lyrics to distract me. And then I will kind of force myself to write. I have a bad habit of trying to write an entire draft in one sitting, and I'm trying to train myself away from that. I think part of the fear is that if I walk away from the poem, I can't get back into the mood or the language of the poem. And I'm trying to dissuade that because I get a bit too obsessed about making the poem perfect. I'm very critical of myself when I edit, and I'm trying to balance that out too. My use of language. Thank you. Okay, so I think the language is a thing that comes out in the editing process. Sometimes I will hear sounds and I will try to play with that sound. I will admit that in the process, it gets a little cheesy sometimes. Sometimes the rhymes and the rhythms get a little cheesy, but I like for the language to sort of build into one another. I'm sort of in love with language and the sounds of language, and I really um, have been kind of striving to kind of up my musicality as I go. is it different with each poem, or are there certain go-to things you do when I'm writing the poems? It's probably different with each poem. I mean, I do have that ritual, right, where I do listen to um, video game soundtracks. Legend of Zelda's Breath of the Wild as one of them. The music in that is incredibly good, insanely good, right? Legend of Zelda is one of my go-tos. Period. Any of the games. And I will kind of sit down with that, and I will just kind of try to write each poem. Sometimes maybe I will read beforehand. I will just take like a couple hours and sit down with like poets that I admire, like depending on the voice that I'm thinking the poem wants to have. I will sit there and read different people's work and just try and live in language for a while. But other times I just kind of try to dive in and really let the editing process do a lot of the work. How do I balance writing, studying? Balancing writing, studying, and teaching? I don't know how I do it. I don't do that well. I disappear from my phone for long periods of time. People won't hear from me for like a week or two, and they'll be like, "Yeah, where's Diamond?" That's where I am. I'm writing, studying, or teaching. Um, I try to like lean like what I'm studying into like what I'm working on or writing. Actually, that's why I'm taking, for instance, the literature class, African American literature class about the South, right? Because I really want the South to be a kind of key and critical presence in this book of Alice poems project that I'm doing. And I hope that you guys kind of heard some of that today. But I try the best I can to kind of line those two worlds up so that they're kind of building into one another. And sometimes I'm surprised when there are classes that end up inevitably intersecting with one another and they start making connections. And I'm always ready for that. Recommended reading for revising. That's a good question. Let's see. Do you guys know? Oh, it's right here. This book changed my life. Right? Just like, and this is not even just like about revising, although I do kind of come back to it when I need to kind of think about some of the subjects and how to deal with them. Right? This is kind of what I kind of come back to. I keep it here on my desk for a reason. But also, there is a book that's really great about setting up a manuscript called Ordering the Storm. I think I have that right. Go with that, for sure. Especially if you're kind of thinking about, like, if you're at where I was, where you kind of have to think about situating poems in an order, and you're like, how the fudge do I do that? Right? That book was great. Yes, I'm very good at chucking my phone away to escape the world. The title for which book? Ordinary Genius. Came out in Ezio. Ordinary Genius. Sorry about that. This has been really wild and fun. This is, I think, I realized my first time reading by myself, which was kind of intimidating in a strange way. This is also the first reading I've ever gotten to do where I didn't have to wear shoes. So that was something. We're slowly kind of kicking down to about that time. I don't mind if nobody else kind of has other questions, if we want to kind of wrap this up. If you want me to play more music, I can do that too. I can do that now, actually, as we kind of sit here and see if other questions sort of come in. If other 90s tunes. Let's hear Backstreet Boys. And play that out. Thank you so much for coming, everybody. This was terrifying and intimidating. It helped to have all of your positivity here. If you're interested in seeing, ooh, Backstreet Boys, I love you. You're a little loud though, babies. Turn that down. If you're interested in seeing more of my work, I've got a few things out and about in the world. Let me see. Most recently, I had a poem come out with Swim, Six Finch. Actually, one of the poems that I read today you can find on Six Finch. Court Green has some of my work. Tupelo Quarterly. I have a poem on the offing. Yes. I have others. Boat. That one's kind of racy. I'm so glad that you enjoyed it enough to want to kind of find more. I really appreciate that. And again, if you really dug some of the work that I read here, stay tuned for more of those Book of Alice poems. But also, I have that book coming out from Saturnalia Books, and actually, I will be doing a reading with them, I believe, in December. So, if you'd like to hear poems more from that book than the Book of Alice, then I will be reading that. So happy. Thank you all for coming. Okay, so let me go ahead and kind of close this out. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Furious Flower Facebook Live reading series. Thank you to Lauren. Thank you to the Furious Flower staff. Y'all awesome. I hope you enjoyed the reading. I want you guys to tune in on Friday, September 25th to hear the absolutely phenomenal, incredible Avery Young. You need to be here. Roll through. To get details on this other and other Furious Flower programming, follow Furious Flower on Facebook. You can visit their website. It's www.jmu.edu/Furious Flower. You can also drop that in the chat as well. They have an incredible lineup, so make sure you're kind of coming back and checking constantly. Right? Come through, come support. There are so many incredible writers coming through with Furious Flower. They do the work. They really put on some of the most amazing folks I know. So thank you to the work that they do. Thank you guys. Stay safe. This was fun. Much love. We'll be back. Bye, y'all.